The Wes Penra Papers, the second level of learning. Genesis Paper Number 3, Mechanics Around Entrapment of Souls in Third Dimension by Wes Penra, Sunday, August 12, 2012, http://wespenry.com. 6. The grid, the frequency fence, the quarantine, and the veil of amnesia. How it all works. We have talked about how the third dimension can hold its frequency much due to the great crystal forests underneath the Earth. This, of course, is not the only reason the planet stays in vibration, but perhaps one of the biggest stabilizers. Many think that it's the third dimension that is the trap and that we need to destroy that frequency to be able to become star beings. Not so. This is basically the dimension in which intelligent life starts on most planets, after they have been genetically engineered by the founders. Therefore, the normal and healthy procedure for a star race to grow up must progress something like this, and some of this is repetition, just for it to sink in. 1. A new solar system is born. When the planets have cooled down, founders come and ask for permission to create on one or more of the planets. 2. After plant and animal life are seeded, they start creating a more intelligent species that can reach for the stars. 3. This species go through their eras of technology, most of them, and begin to explore their own solar system, hence engineering spaceships that can take them near and far in their own stellar system. 4. Soon enough they start pondering what technology they need in order to reach the stars. However hard they try, they can't figure out how to get there. The distances are too long. 5. At one point or another they realize that they are spirit in a body and that their biological vessels can't make it in space, they are not designed to. They may try robots at first, but the star travel takes way too long. Sooner or later they figure out that there are stargates they can use, but their physical bodies can still not do the trip. 6. Eventually they figure out how to split the soul into different fragments and find out that they can soul travel, nano travel, through stargates and out on the galactic highways and reach their destination in almost no time while their biological bodies stay home. In fact, their bodies will never be able to leave their own home system, they are not made to travel in space. 7. They discover that they can shapeshift by using their avatar/light body to manifest themselves in any physical form they like. However, it has its limitations, because it can't do certain things, like having sex, and other practical things. Although it appears very physical, you can even shake hands with it, having the same sensation as if it's real. 8. If the purpose of this star race is to conquer other star systems, they may do so in the nano world, by attaching themselves to already existing bodies on the planet they're visiting, and slowly take over. Or, if they know how to genetically engineer, they can clone bodies within the solar system they are visiting and use these bodies to conquer. The bodies they are using may look exactly like the bodies of those they are conquering, which will be very confusing for those who are attacked, or they may manifest as something else. They may want to create bodies that are stronger and more endurable than their original ones, or the ones of the inhabitants of the planet they're conquering. The Sirians are the only ones who use push/pull drive that I am aware of. This takes much longer, and they still have to shrink themselves and their asteroids and travel through stargates in a much slower fashion. Once on the other side, they can apparently get the asteroid back to normal size, but they can't take their physical bodies with them. When they first came to Eridu, they came with their soul/avatar and eventually created bodies here they could use. If we take the Sirians as an example, they look like wolven/reptilian dwarfs on their home planet, but when they travel to other star systems, they adjust to what is most appropriate to them there, and manifest as such. Each star system has their own biology. The beings may be humanoid, reptilian, mothmen, insectoids, sauroids, greys, and you name it. But these biological bodies stay put where they are and are not used for interstellar travels. So if you want to see a real reptilian, the way they really look, you have to nano travel to a star system which is inhabited by such a race. Otherwise, you will only see them as a manifestation of someone's avatar. Star beings can shapeshift into anything they wish. They would be as real as you and I, but it's not their real bodies. Even if they would look like that on their home planet as well, what the person saw is still just a soul manifestation, similar to what people do after body death. They separate from their body and go to the between life area, blah, where they notice they can manifest to whatever they want. However, that's done in the ether, which is another dimension, much less dense than 3D, so these bodies may appear more transparent. But ETS can do the same thing down here and make their manifestation appear as solid as our human bodies. ETS who interfere with our evolution are doing this all the time, often illegally. 9. Either by self-realization, or the star race may encounter a race who is more evolved and teach them more peaceful ways of living. Sooner or later a star race grows up and stops creating violence around them and become peaceful races. And of course, far from every star race will become conquerors, either. Still, there are star races who prefer technology before spirituality and continue killing and raping for a very long time. The Sirians are one such race. Some channeled material say such beings are of negative density and evolve as service to self, STS, love to self, contrary to those who choose to experience love as service to others, STO. 10. Once a star race reaches the stars by knowing how to nano-travel, they are interdimensional. When they also realize that they create reality with their thoughts and can decide what future they want just by focusing their thoughts, throw out all their sloppy thoughts and become visionaries, they adjust and tune into a multiverse that fits their vibrations, and peace and harmony in general can be the natural state of being on the planet, or within the Federation, if such a communion is built. 11. The star race soon learns that they should not interact with evolving star races on other 3D planets and interfere with their learning lessons. They will learn that it would be a break of the universal law of non-interference. Not until a star race is able to nano-travel and communicate telepathically can another star race contact them and ask them for permission to descend on their planet. If the stationary star races agrees, trading treaties and other agreements may be set up, and also exchange of knowledge in all different fields may be established, and they may even build a federation if they want. 12. Each star race is indexed by their creator gods to a certain planet, and their bodies are adapted to live on that particular world, breathe its atmosphere and move around comfortably. If another star race would have been able to visit a certain planet in their own bodies, the conditions would most probably be wrong for them, and they'd had to wear spacesuits all the time, or the gravitational field would be too heavy or too light. The planet may be too close or too far away from the sun, and the visitor would either burn up or freeze. On a planet where beings are not trapped, and there is no amnesia between lives, indexed bodies can still cease to function when they are material and die, but then the soul just takes a new body with memories intact. As we shall see, in theory the Sirian overlords broke the law of non-interference and the law of free will, although technically they didn't. Just like here on Earth, criminals can be very creative when comes to bypassing common laws to be able to commit their crimes. Hence, the legislators always have to come up with new laws to prevent this from happening. The Sirians are experts in bypassing these laws, and soon we shall see how they do it. It took me a long time to research and rewire my neurological pathways before I could comprehend that most of the spaceships and UFOs people see are, when they are not weather phenomena etc., either man-made, driven by extraterrestrials who are using them while traveling within our solar system, or if they are interstellar, they are maneuvered by a star race who is traveling through the dimensions via stargates and portals, or that some actually travel in the sub-quantum world, on a subatomic level. The Earth governments were given UFO technology through TTPs, often in exchange for giving the star race permission to abduct humans to explore and enhance our DNA to fit their purposes, not ours. The upgrading of Homo sapiens has never stopped, it continues endlessly. After all, this is a genetic library, so they think they can do whatever they want. Well, they can especially now, when they have permission. In other words, technically they are doing nothing wrong. It was the governments who should never have agreed to the exchange, but greed and power took the best of them, and sadly, When comes to our Earth government, this seems to be the case. Other, more benevolent star races visited the US government as well, but were rejected. The government decided to work with those who could give them technology, not how to bring peace to Earth. The Sirians are a very technologically sophisticated race. They have been around for billions of years and know their stuff. And the Aryans are even more savvy, especially when comes to genetic engineering and manipulation of existing species. However, like the Pleiadians so often point out, just because a star race are creator gods, they are not necessarily spiritually evolved, and they emphasize this in particular when comes to the Sirians and the Mayans, who had a connection with the Maya star system in the Pleiades. They started out as a highly evolved race and even created civilizations here, which they inserted, like I talked about earlier in this paper. However, sometimes the creator gods want to explore and feel how it would be to be part of the creation they are behind and thus descend to participate in the life of the civilization. This is what made the Mayans corrupt, too many temptations, and they couldn't handle it. We humans have to be morally and ethically stronger than the Mayans, even, to be able to make it, and cast temptations aside and point our noses towards the goal of becoming sovereign. If this was a normal 3D reality, we would have reached the stars a long time ago, but this is not a normal 3D reality, something we will discuss further. 6.1 The influence from the artificial moon. I want to use the analogy of a radio station again, because it explains the mechanics around this trap. Imagine a radio where the creator gods can turn the knob and tune into any station they want. They choose to tune into the 3D station to create life on a planet. Life evolves, and one day the developing race learns how to turn the knob themselves and all of a sudden become interdimensional, because they can easily go to any radio station as soon as they learn to work the knob. They can even split themselves up and use 2, 3, 4, 10 radios and tune them all into different stations and experience different dimensions and realities. They have a lot of fun doing this. And no one is stopping them. However, on one planet called Terra, a species is being created within the 3D radio station, which is normal. However, the creator gods don't let their creation evolve, but mess with their DNA so that they can't easily reach the stars and instead become obedient slaves. Furthermore, the creator gods lock the radio knob into one position, so that the evolving race can't turn the knob in any direction it's stuck. And here we are, stuck in a 3D reality when we should have been exploring the universe. But how did the Sirian overlords do it? First of all planets have layers of energy grids around them as a natural thing, so we can experience reality from different time frames. If an ET wants to enter our reality, they need to know which portal to use, because otherwise they may enter in the wrong time and the planet may be barren or dominated by dinosaurs when in fact the ET wanted to enter into the 21st century. There is an abundance of portals like that around, and on, the planet. I mentioned but a few in level I. I must admit here that I am not sure about the sequence of how they did it, but I am confident that it was done in the below manner. The reader will probably realize what a great ordeal it is to keep humankind stuck in this prison. It takes a lot of effort to keep consciousness trapped. Someone said that it's like holding a blown-up balloon down with your hand to the bottom of a pool. It will stay there as long as you hold it, but as soon as you let go, the balloon immediately floats up to the surface. The same thing with soul consciousness. It's a whole complex science that needs to function with no fail for thousands of years. The least of failures, and the trapped souls may wake up and escape, or start confronting the controllers. Therein lies our solution. This is the weakness of the trap. Now, when learning the mechanics of the entrapment, let us start with the moon. To begin with, our moon is not a natural planetary body in the sense that it belongs here. It was put here by interdimensional beings. Some even say that it's too big to be our moon, in comparison with the size of Earth. Others have said that it was put there to spy on us humans to make sure we are staying put, and yes, spying may be one function, but it was hardly just because of that the moon was put there. So who put the moon there to begin with? Well, we know for a fact that it has been placed there, because they have found rocks and minerals on the moon that are far older than our own solar system. This alone proves it's not a natural satellite to our planet. Another interesting observation is that when you look at the full moon in the sky, it appears to be exactly the same size as the sun viewed from Earth. Someone was good at math and a whole lot of other sciences. Some would argue that the moon was put there by the original creator gods, those from Orion and elsewhere across the universe, and others would say it was the Sirians, and that it in fact is a Sirian hollowed-out spacecraft. I have no evidence which one it could be, but I can say with quite some certainty that the moon is now owned by the Dark Lords from Sirius. They have bases all around that globe, and especially on the dark side of the moon. Why doesn't the moon rotate around its own axis, you may ask? I would say because it's made not to. They have secrets and they hide them on the dark side. Also, to all these scientists' great surprise, they made the moon vibrate and ring like a bell just recently, and they say that it would only do that if it's hollow. Exactly. And if we are to believe remote viewer, Ingo Swann, he saw naked being working under the surface of the moon. They even detected him when he approached them by nano-traveling, and he had to quickly escape back into his body here on Earth, and he discovered towers on the moon. He was right, the towers are there. I included a video in Level I, and I've had it verified that it's authentic. AR of LPGC has told me that similar towers have been found on Earth, hidden halfway underground in the jungle in Africa. I believe it was, a jungle which is hard to penetrate. Unless you know what you are looking for and how to get there, via helicopter for example, the only other way to detect them is by remote viewing or NSDEF, which is A.RS specialty. Here is the link to the same video I released in the Level I papers, http://wespenra.com/video/mooncityapollo20.avi. The Sirians, to create an obedient slave race, had to keep us trapped, or we would automatically evolve and challenge them. I think the moon has a part in it. Someone, probably Enlil and his crew, took one of their hollowed-out planetoids, put it in place where it ought to be at the moment in order to create the effect they wanted. Like the Pleiadians say, the moon has been moved into different positions over time and has not always been on the distance from Earth as it is today. Perhaps the distance had to be adjusted at times when we started getting uncomfortable with our master-slave situation, and they could reprogram us after have adjusted the position of the artificial satellite. The towers, however, and what looks like ruins, don't seem to be used anymore, and the whole construct on the moon that is shown in the video seems abandoned. Probably, more sophisticated ways of doing things were invented and the old ways were abandoned, only leaving the ruins as reminders of times that were. Moreover, the Pleiadians, in one of their CDs from fall 2010, are telling us the following about the moon, and I paraphrase. The moon is an artificial construct and not a natural body. It has been a battleground for control of Earth for a long, long time. The moon rules our emotions and goes deep into the unconscious mind. This is why it works to put out so-called moon papers when it's new moon and full moon, and without the moon the world would be a totally different place. To develop the civilization the way it is developed, the moon was needed. The moon keeps things in balance. It has a powerful effect on gravitational and magnetic forces, and there are even rogue scientists today who realize that the center of gravity and magnetism may not be on Earth at all. It may be somewhere between Earth and the moon. We also know that the moon has a lot to do with women's menstrual cycles. Personally, I am extremely sensitive to the position of the moon. When there is a full moon, I am extra cautious, because odd and not always good things tend to happen on that day and the day before and after. I know for a fact I am not imagining it, and I have had it confirmed by others as well. It's not too uncommon, but most people may not connect it to the moon cycles. So by manipulating the distance of the moon to Earth, and probably adjusting other things related to it as well, the Sirians can control our emotions, keep us in a state of fear and uncertainty, and thus have their food source guaranteed. All they need to do is to enhance our fear and anxiety whenever is needed. Not until we learn how to vibrate slightly higher than the 3D frequency they have us stuck in can we evolve above the fear and anxiety that is intentionally created so they can feed off it, but also keep us under control. The moon is important in this respect. There will be an additional paper here in level 2, which will deal with the moon, Mars, and other control stations used by the Sirians, so I will only touch the surface here in this particular paper. 6.2 The Time Lock. Once the Sirians got the idea to create a slave race who was not allowed to reach the stars, to keep them trapped they also had to create something which can be most easily described as a time lock. The human race who was already here, the Namlu, was multidimensional and could travel interdimensionally between the stars. This, of course, had to stop if your purpose was to enslave a race. Therefore, the Dark Lords reconstructed the natural grids around the planet to create this artificial time lock, which would keep their slave race from experiencing simultaneous time. They had to have them adjust to a straight, linear timeline. However, this is not easily done, because we live in a multiverse where our thoughts and actions create new realities, and thus new timelines continuously, but the trick was to, in addition to create this artificial grid, make the slave race oblivious to whom they were and where they came from, plus the whole conception of time, timelines, and reality in general. This way, these master manipulators could manipulate people's thoughts and create their realities for them in a manner which was more in line with what the Sirians wanted us to believe in order to control us and our destiny. In addition, and in line with the above, the Sirians had to rearrange the DNA of the prototypes they were creating so that when a spirit entered the body, it was locked into the grid, both in a more lofty fashion but also through their manipulated bodies. Thus, the Dark Lords thought they had constructed the perfect trap. However, the grid, the artificial grid, here spelled with a capital G, was not at all perfect. It was meant to also block certain frequencies of light and prevent it from reaching the surface of the planet. Light carries information. This was done in order to keep humankind uninformed. But the grid was like a Swiss cheese, and pillars of light could penetrate, coming in from the Sun and the cosmos in general, and now from the galactic center, as we are aligning. 12. This didn't bother the Sirians too much, because even when the light was able to penetrate, the DNA was rearranged in such a way that the information went right through the human bodies without being absorbed, because there was no one there who knew how to receive it. But there was something else with the imperfect grid that the Sirian overlords were very concerned about. The grid could be used as an escape route after the person died. The Dark Lords did not want that to happen. They had invested a lot in this control system, so they wanted the same souls to incarnate over and over, just to be recycled into a new slave body here on Earth. Therefore, they invested a lot of time in figuring out how to prevent souls from escaping after death. The solution to the problem was a tunnel of light. When a human soul left her dead body, she was normally confused, because she had been kept ignorant and didn't know what to do and where to go. So, some souls stayed discarnate, hovering over Earth, while others attached themselves to another human body, unquiet dead. See Metaphysics paper number 3, and some escaped through the pillars of light, the holes in the Swiss cheese. None of this was what the Sirians wanted. So they created this tunnel of light, which was often connected with a warm, fuzzy feeling, and false images of dead relatives leading them towards the tunnel. More often than not there were also spirit guides there to greet them and meet them after they separated from their bodies, and sometimes it could also be a religious experience, with a Jesus figure waiting on the other end, or some other religious deity before Jesus' time. The whole purpose was to direct the deceased away from the holes in the grid and manipulate them into the trap. Once the spirit had agreed to enter the tunnel, they were sucked in with an enormous speed, almost like a cosmic vacuum cleaner, and entered the between-life area, where they met with their dead relatives and friends, or fragments of their souls, left in the afterlife to keep the new, ignorant spirit busy. The blah was in fact just a relay station where the spirit was waiting for her next turn to be recycled. Here in the afterlife, the spirit could relax with friends for a while and experience some extraordinary things she could do with her avatar/light body. One of these things was she could manifest a whole reality for herself. She could create a house out of the blue, a horse to ride on, almost whatever she wished to do. After a while, however, it was time to be recycled again. The Sirians and their helpers, residing in this dimension, and whose job it was to manage these in-between spirits, had to block the memories of their victims before they were shot back into a body. So the souls who were about to be recycled received some heavy-duty implants before they were ready for their next lives. They were put in a chair and were spun around, while bombarded with images in a rapid speed, telling them to obey their masters, and to forget about previous lives. Some of these implant stations were located on Mars, others in the Pyrenees 1314. From there, the soul was then shot into a new body with all memories erased, and so it went on, life after life, up to this very day. Very little has changed. The only thing that apparently has changed over time is that some souls who have been heavily implanted over time, appear not to need the amnesia treatment anymore, and will automatically take a new body when one becomes available. They don't even have to go through the tunnel of light at all. So, one way to escape would be to disappear out through one of the holes in the grid, explore the universe from a soul level. You automatically become multi-D and inter-D once you have penetrated the grid and escaped, and join a civilization, or the beings on a planet you feel you would be happy residing on. This, of course, is a secret no one will tell you about, not even the best of the channeled entities, because they all want us to stay here and work it out from our Earth perspective. Those channeled entities, including the Pleiadians, have much invested in us and the living library, and want us to defeat the Sirian overlords from our 3D perspective by upgrading our DNA, raising our consciousness, and build a new Earth. Why do they want this? Because if we do, it will also change their future, which is where they come from, and hopefully stop their own tyranny under which they live. This pertain in particular to the Pleiadians, who could trace back the tyranny they lived under to decisions we made during the nanosecond, between 1987 to 2012, which has affected their own timeline negatively. Therefore, they tell us, they are here to help us make more ethical and pro-survival decisions and thus change our own future timeline, which will affect theirs. So, in other words, they are here to work out their own karma, which has to do with their own interference with humans and the Earth in their past, which would be our present and our past. For this to work, it requires that we stay here in our 3D bodies, raise our consciousness, and become multidimensional without technology, or with minimal technology, and that we claim our sovereignty as human beings. If this succeeds, the Sirians would have to leave, or play out their own karma in another version of Earth, where those who refuse to wake up will potentially spend the rest of their future together with their slave masters. They can of course anytime change their course, but it will be harder and harder the longer people wait. The nanosecond was a time window when the galactic center has been bombarding us with information carried on gamma rays and other frequencies of the higher electromagnetic spectrum, and we have had a chance in a million to upgrade ourselves. Still, be aware that there is a choice. We do have opportunities to leave this planet and go somewhere else, particularly when we experience body death, but we also have the option to stay here with our fellow humans and ride things out, remain system busters and help raising the energies and regain the rights to this planet's. These are the same rights we, in conjunction with the original founders, once had, and as a result flesh the Sirians out, or have them integrate with our higher vibrations and forgive. If everybody who knows how to do it chooses to escape, the rest of humanity, who has been more heavily implanted and are not yet able to see the new dawn, will be doomed. No one will judge us if we escape, but it takes more courage, love and caring to stay and ride it out, especially as I believe we can do it. More about that later. And remember, once we've raised our consciousness we don't need to go through the tunnel towards the light anymore. We can come back with memories intact, no amnesia implants, and continue our work, and mind you, we can, if things get ugly, escape at any time. But again, those who want to leave are absolutely free to do so. We don't have a contract to stay here. When the god spell is broken, it's by choice. There is no need to go into the tunnel of light. When you've read this, you are at that point. The key to freedom is disobedience towards those who keep us in chains. Remember, they need to have our permission to enslave us, whether it's a conscious decision or not. Of course, we have to be smart about it and not just go and sit in the forest and think we're disobeying the Sirians. It's a process, and can only be done if we choose to stay for some lifetimes yet. There are more things to be aware of as well, but we shall go into that later, in an upcoming paper. Also, when I say we must forgive those who suppress us, it must stir up some controversy. Why forgive those who have murdered and slaughtered? Well, we must forgive those who decide to repent, because this also means we forgive ourselves. We are all in this together, and to leave a long era of tumult and chaos while still holding grudges against somebody is not going to make us happy. By this I don't mean we should turn a blind eye to what they are doing in present time, quite the opposite. We help where our help is asked for and needed, but spend most of our time developing ourselves to be able to inspire and lift others up so we can reach for the stars together. Everybody has their own local universe inside of them, and we all create our own reality in conjunction with others who work in our realm of frequency. The Sirians who decide to proceed with these inhumane processes also create their own living hell and in the long run will eradicate themselves, something we will go into mechanics about as well in a later paper. Each being needs to work out their own inner conflicts, that's just how it works, and needs to be understood by the evolving human. Don't interfere too much with others' unhandled conflicts and grudge games, it will lead you nowhere beside towards eradication of self literally. Forgive where you can and move on. In the meantime, help those who need a push in the right direction, but don't interfere with their learning lessons. Like a certain native Indian said, a true warrior knows when to walk away. The Pleiadians lecture the following. Because of the time locks that were put upon the portals here, and because the corridors of time are owned, those out in the cosmos are not able to find Earth. Its light of existence was erased. A different electromagnetic spectrum, a harmless one that does not register the kind of consciousness Earth has, was put here so that Earth could not be found. Earth was covered up, quarantined. If only one road exists in and out, and it is locked, then commerce is forbidden from entering time corridor, and it is cut off completely from all other influences. The bottom line here is that the Sirian overlords owned the corridors of time from the moment they locked us into 3D. Earth became invisible for visitors in general, they simply couldn't find her. She was hidden in a frequency band not commonly used, and if someone was looking in that range, Earth was still cloaked and extremely hard to find unless you knew how. They own the portals that come to the planet, and leave it. We are sitting in the middle of Peshmetan, one of the main galactic highways, and we're blocking it. And what is more, they use our energies to tighten and strengthen the grid. How? Due to that we vibrate on a locked-in frequency, and the more chaos and tumult, the tighter the grid, the less chance there is to penetrate it. Still, there are those pillars of light, which means the cloaking was never perfect, and never will be. The grid will never be repaired and made perfect. The Dark Lords couldn't do it in the past and they certainly can't do it now, because it's too late. 7 billion people are vibrating in unison towards a higher consciousness. You can almost hear the musical pitch change upwards, like when you tune a guitar to a higher note. As a musician, in my mind I can hear it literally. Going backwards in time again for a moment, things changed drastically in the whole universe back in 1945 when we opened up the gateways to the universe and made our presence known in the most destructive way. We had learned how to split the atom and used that knowledge to nuke Hiroshima and Nagasaki, watching the mushroom clouds reach the sky. Some watched it with excitement, thinking it was a wonderful revenge for the attack on Pearl Harbor. America is great. In an instant, we told the universe where we are. That's when star beings from all over the universe rushed over here across the dimensions. Most of them were extremely concerned, because here was a civilization who could split the atom but used it destructively on their own planet, their own home. And the effects of those explosions, plus all of those that came after, rippled out across the dimensions in a most destructive way. We told the universe, hey, we're here, but no one was impressed. Most were happy that we were kept in quarantine and voted for that we should be remain isolated. That way no one wanted to give us a ticket to the stars. 6.3 Civilizations inserted through time portals. After the destruction of the original Terra during the War of the Titans, the Sirians had to reconstruct the whole planet, which we will talk more about in the next paper. Before the genetic engineering and manipulation began, there was no grid around Earth. It was basically set up here more than 500,000 years ago to seal Earth off from the rest of the universe, while the frequency fence, which locked our ancestors into 3D, was set up about 300,000 years ago. The Sirians' own founders, the ones who worked with them, such as the Aryan called Enki, and the Sirian female known as Ninhursag, Ninki, or just Nin, recreated much of the fauna and flora from seeds they had stored since earlier, but they were not the ones who recreated the living library. About 500,000 years ago, when our planet was really coming to life again, whole civilizations were inserted on Earth via time portals, by first penetrating the grid through the pillars of light. This was not an easy task due to the artificial grid, but it was done, nonetheless. These events are quite extensively explained in Barbara Marciniak's channeled book, Earth Pleiadian Keys to the Living Library. The Pleiadians tell us that the planet at this time was owned by the Sirians, although they call them Lizzies in the book, after a devastating space war, the Titan Wars, which the Lizzies won. However, those who cared for the living library, the original founders, reinserted both the library and civilizations that existed here side by side with the Sirians. These beings could do things like this. They had whole blueprints, or templates, for civilizations that had worked well elsewhere and still did, because time is simultaneous, and often they used these blueprints and inserted them on other worlds, with small modifications and alterations to better fit with the existing environment. They transported these civilizations through the corridors of time, just to manifest them wherever they felt it was right to do so. Some of these civilizations here on Earth existed for 500 years, others for 1,000 years or more, but most of them were eventually fought off by the Sirians and disappeared. However, they did not cease to exist, because on a multidimensional level they are always existing. Sometimes, the founders inserted a new civilization on top of the old one, and archaeologists who find remnants of them today think they are totally separate from each other, although they may not be able to figure out where they came from, so suddenly there are a lot of missing links. In reality, they are just layers upon layers, and when the time portals open again, like they do now, all these civilizations will start existing simultaneously as time collapses and timelines start merging at the end of a cycle. Clues to all these civilizations can be found all around the planet today, some above ground, others underground. This will be more real to people when we break free from what exopolitical writer Neil Freer calls the God's Pell, and we can look at things from other time perspectives, which are unique not only to 3D. What is a timeline, really? For a timeline to exist, it must have something like a primary event that it can be anchored to. The Pleiadians, in the same book, say that the primary event that hooked us to this timeline was the consciousness of man. It is very interesting to see how much extraterrestrial influences there have been on this planet throughout her history, and it has all been hidden in plain sight to the whole population. Everyday people are coexisting amongst clues and artifacts which we take for granted as a part of our environment, when indeed these clues have incredible ancient stories to tell. Instead of exploring the real history of mankind and the ramifications of the alien influences, we have been designed and distracted in such a way that we'd rather look into things that do not matter and which will eventually dig our own graves. The question is, if we let our own ignorance be our nemesis, will there be another civilization after us which can interpret the clues of our existence, or are we the last civilization on Earth? We have a lot of important choices to make, so please, mankind,